supported you and got you through it?
So, about a time I struggled with mental health, and someone got me through it. It was a long period of time I have struggled with mental health. It was out of my position as a chaplain at Dover Air Force Base. I was required to come in and minister to help the airmen who were working in the back of the mortuary. We would process every set of remains that came through from accidents, from bombings, from the terror attack on 9/11 to when the war started up. And that, that took quite a hit on me because in order to minister to other people, to help them out with their mental health, and that really was my role as a chaplain, um, I discovered that I was building a brick wall around my heart so that I, I was strong for them and helping them through these times, but I wasn't allowing anybody else to do it for me. And what I discovered, I did that for 8 years. And I was an award-winning chaplain and whatnot. People loved me for what I did, but they had no idea that I had gone into a real dark hole in my heart, in my mind, in my thinking. Interestingly enough, my oldest daughter recognized it first, and in a very bold way, she took me out for dinner one night when she was a freshman in college, and she said, "Dad, I need to tell you, you've changed." And while I really appreciated that, she had that kind of uh, courage to take her dad to task here. Uh, what she didn't see was that I was actually angry with her because I'm like, who are you to tell me I've changed? And who are you to tell me that it's the mortuary? And she named the mortuary. I told her I would think about it. And then I went back to the base and just continued my work in there and helping other airmen and whatnot. That was my role. I had a vice wing commander. A vice wing commander called me into his office and he says, "Hey, chaplain, you've changed." And he goes, "I think it's the mortuary, and I'm asking you, would you go get help?" Um, I am embarrassed to tell you, I say this publicly, him saying that to me was 5 years after my daughter had said it to me. So for 5 years, I was going deeper and deeper into post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. And while I'm helping so many other people, I'm not helping myself and I'm not allowing someone else to help me. So he said to me that day in his office, he said, "I could order you to go to mental health, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna ask you as a friend, would you go over?" And so I said yes. And actually it came as a huge relief because I knew I was in a bad spot. I wasn't sleeping well. I was withdrawing from people. I wasn't going home on weekends anymore to see my family. I was scared at loud noises and whatnot. And I knew I was in a bad way. So I walked over to mental health and asked to see one of the docs. And they had a psychologist. She came out about 3 minutes later because rank has its privileges. And though there were many other people waiting, all enlisted folks, they just figured I needed help with something right away. And she says to me in her office, "So chaplain, which one of your troops do you want to talk about?" She couldn't imagine it would be me. And I said, "Well, here's what I'm going through." And so this psychologist at Dover Air Force Base says to me, after I've described to her all these things I was experiencing, she says, "Chaplain, you have PTSD. Let's start to meet together." Now, I knew her because she had been the head of the mental health team in the mortuary, and I'd been the head of the chapel team. So we intersected a lot. Um, the fourth meeting we had, she says to me, I walk in and I could tell her eyes were red. I'm like, why is this psychologist holding back tears? And she says, "Chaplain, I have something bad to tell you. I can no longer meet with you." I have a little bit of a sense of humor. And I said, "Well, tell me what's going on. I know I have this effect on women." And And she gave a little laugh, but then the tears start flowing, and she says, "Chaplain, because you've brought up all your stuff in the mortuary, it has brought up all my stuff in the mortuary, and I have PTSD, and I've been running from it and hiding it, and my supervisor will no longer let me meet with patients until I go get treated." Um, and then I started a long process. I actually was in therapy for close to 9 years because I saw about 1,100 sets of remains down there, and a lot of them young people. I mean, I teach here, and when I look out on a class, I often reflect that if they were all lying horizontal on an autopsy table, that's what they remind me of. Um, and I saw the same therapist for the final 7 years, and she was prior military, and wow, did she help me. I'll say she saved my life. And in fact, one time I was invited down to speak at the mortuary to all the troops who lived there, who worked there rather, and they didn't have any remains in there, but they wanted me to come down and share my experience. And I talked to her about it, and she said, "Yes, I think you should go, it'll be good for you." I go, "Well, the only way I would do that maybe is if you came with me." And she did. And I was, after we talked to the troops, encouraged them to get help when they need it and whatnot. I'd asked for permission for her and I to walk through all the stations in the mortuary. There were no remains there, and they let us do that. It took us about 3 hours because 12 stations or so, we stopped at every one. And I would say, "Hey, here's what I saw here. This is what I experienced here. This is what I smelled here. This is the feeling I had here." And we did that with everyone. And honestly, a lot of good therapy will take you places you don't want to go. And I didn't want to go back in the mortuary, certainly not physically, but not in my mind. But that was a huge part of the healing that I went through. I share this talk in many, many different places, particularly in the military now. And I will say to them, "Hey, if the chaplain screwed this up, if the psychologist messed this up, trust me, you can. So go get help. Go get help." And it's interesting because when they know a psychologist had to get help, when they see a chaplain who's supposed to have it all together need to go get help, they what do? It lowers the stigma for them, and they realize it's okay. Because not only was I a chaplain, I was a lieutenant colonel, and you're supposed to have it all together. And the truth is you don't. Trauma happens, depression happens, and nobody is immune from it. And so to get help is huge.